Welcome to the Earning Freedom Podcast, the Success After Prison podcast. Today we are on episode number 3 with a true success after prison. In fact, we're talking in episode 3 with Jimmy Hamilton, a young man, a man who went to prison when he was only 20 years old because of a violent crime. His judge imposed a term of life in prison. As a consequence of that lengthy sentence and the nature of the crime, Jimmy began serving his sentence at the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, transitioning to the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute. He described in episode 1 his initial adjustment, but then he had an epiphany that caused him to really change his adjustment and start sowing seeds for a better outcome. And as a result of those decisions, Jimmy transitioned from the United States penitentiary system into federal correctional institutions where he earned his undergraduate degree, where he completed numerous programs that advanced his own prospect for success, and where he led the population by playing a leadership role in the mentor program so that he could inspire more people who were serving time to prepare for lives of success and meaning and relevance and contribution. Today we're going to hear a little bit more about Jimmy's final decades in prison. I was with Jimmy back in the mid-1990s. He served another 18 years in additional prisons, and he's going to tell us today about those experiences. So, Jimmy, you said in the last episode that you transitioned to the low-security prison in Lexington despite having a violent conviction. Walk us through your adjustment inside of the low-security federal correctional institution.
Well, as we stated before, when you transfer down into security levels, there's just a level of stress that comes off of you. There's just a little bit more room to breathe and to conduct yourself in a more natural, more more human way. You can behave like normal people. You can be nice to people without worrying about who's going to rob your locker. You can offer things to people without worrying about what you're going to get back from them or who they're affiliated with. So transitioning to a lower institution, and then of course the level of opportunities opens up to you. There are more programs in lower securities. There are more work opportunities. There are more apprenticeship programs and trades that go on. There's just a more of a sense of rehabilitation.
Tell us about some of those opportunities, Jimmy. What were some of those programs that you found available to you as you moved lower in security levels?
Well, there are a lot more apprenticeship programs. People are geared more towards going home because there are more people who go home from lower security prisons. As you can imagine, people who go to low security, there might be, you might have guys doing 15 or 16 or 20 years, but there are also guys who are only doing 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. And there are a lot more, many more programs geared towards people transitioning to the free world. So you have to take advantage of those programs. At Lexington, I was very fortunate. It's a hospital environment. There are a number of very sick individuals in prison, and it really opened my eyes to a very stark reality of the system that I don't know if a lot of guys who are in the higher levels or who aren't around these inmates, we think that the system, kind of like supports us, but these men were dying, Michael, from their illnesses, and there was nothing that the prison system was doing about it. They don't care. The system does not care about you.
Well, let's address that a little bit because, the reality is all of us have to care about ourselves first.
Exactly.
The institution exists for a reason, and that institution isn't necessarily the relationship of the institution and our personal life aren't always one and the same. We've got to take care of ourselves, but one of the unfortunate consequences of our nation's misguided commitment to mass incarceration is that it's really become one of the biggest nursing homes in the United States, where people are serving multiple decades and are getting into the older ages and do need medical care, but it's not. Prisons aren't designed to be hospitals. You were confined in a hospital. What were the people going through when they found themselves moving into the latter stages of their life?
It really is. In many instances, it's horrendous. And it's heartbreaking to see these people who have committed, yes, they've committed crimes that are illegal, and I understand. You and I have always said we're not arguing for, we're not for some Shangri-La system that just pats people on the head and says, "Bad boy, go home." But there has to be some type of recognition of reality. If you have a 70-year-old man who's diabetic and doesn't have, has lost one foot, and he's got 30 years. I mean, that's just unproductive, unresponsible, and it's just a waste of the funds and resources of a society.
Mm-hmm. And how did that influence your adjustment?
Well, when I saw that, first of all, it made, as you said, it just reinforced the fact that I had to take care of myself. I had to be responsible for my own well-being and my own destiny and my own education and my own health and welfare. You have to be willing to, grab a hold of your own destiny, in sort of a cliched thing to say, but you have to be willing to stand up and take those things onto yourself. But as we spoke on in the last podcast, you also need to be willing to reach out to those around you. And that was one of the things, and that benefited me greatly. I was able to participate in a hospice program, which is a companionship program for terminally ill patients.
How did you hear about the program, Jimmy?
It was part of the hospital program through the psychology department at the FMC Lexington. There were a number of inmates who volunteered to befriend and support inmates who were terminally ill. These guys many of them were cancer patients, leukemia patients, dying in prison, Michael, dying, literally.
How long had they been in prison when you met them?
Some of them had just gotten into prison. Some of them had been in prison a very long time. Some of them hadn't even been sentenced yet and were fighting the disease of cancer, waiting to be sentenced by a federal judge. It literally, some of it broke my heart. It ripped my heart out watching these guys fight this fight.
How many people were in this hospital ward where you were volunteering?
At any one time, there were up to 20 patients. In Lexington, they dealt almost specifically with leukemia and lymphoma patients, but there were also AIDS patients, older men who were fighting complications from diabetes, and paraplegic patients. Paraplegics, Mike, the federal system sentences men who can't even move their limbs, who are confined to wheelchairs and can only move through applying pressure on a wheelchair with their chin. They move the wheelchair back and forth by pivoting their head. I mean, that's just incredible to me.
Well, as you've learned and as I've learned, we've got to deal with the world as it exists and not as we would like it to be. I would certainly like to see a system that didn't rely so heavily on incarceration. But the reality is there are 2.3 million people in prison today, and I believe that we can all learn from individuals like you who found ways to create lives of meaning and relevance even while they were in struggle. Now,
yes.
Give us a little background, Jimmy, and tell us how many people altogether were confined at the low security correctional institution in Lexington, Kentucky.
There's almost 2,000 inmates.
So about 2,000 inmates, and how many of those inmates were confined or relegated to the hospital or medical facility? About
1,500. There's only about 500 or 600 general population inmates at that institution.
So while you were in the general population, how much of your time did you devote to assisting individuals who really had a shorter life expectancy?
Well, I worked in the hospital. That was my daily job. I went there every day and, helped take care of other inmates and sat with inmates who were dying and, helped them eat and shower and, get to the hospital and get to physical therapy every day, 5 days a week.
A nurse's aide then? Or were you a janitor or an orderly? No, what did they call it?
I was a nurse's aide. I worked in the hospital. I earned a apprenticeship from the Department of Labor as a certified nurse's aide. And, that was my job. And these guys that I went to, yes, it was my job, but every day I went there trying to help these guys live their life and better their lives, because I knew that they weren't going to make it. Some, as you know, Michael, and not just from the hospital, some people don't make it out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
There are guys who die every day, and they don't get a chance to be successful upon release. They don't get a chance to use these principles that you're putting out and these positive motivations. So, I stress to guys that are in there now, if you've got the chance, you should take it, because some guys don't ever get the chance.
So that you're absolutely right, but I'm really impressed with these credentials that you earned. Not only the devotion that you gave to helping people who are in struggle, but you earned a credential. You said so. Are you currently a certified nurse's assistant with a license and everything?
Well, I have as I said, I'm certified by the Department of Labor, but unfortunately, the certifications go from state to state. So right now, I'm in a state that doesn't allow convicted felons to practice in the medical field. So I can't take advantage of that.
Jimmy,
So,
I want you to know something, that you're an individual who's overcome a lot of struggle in your life. And I'm here to tell you that just because that is Ohio, you're in the state of Ohio. Is that accurate?
that's correct.
You may find that that's what it says on paper, but there are always exceptions to those rules. And I happen to have spoken to and know individuals that were able to overcome rules like that. And if it's something that you're interested in pursuing, I want to talk with you about efforts that you could pursue to reinstate your CNA credential, and possibly even enroll in a nursing program that would lead to you becoming a registered nurse, if that's something that you'd like to do. I'm a big believer that regardless of what rules say on paper, we always have an opportunity to overcome that. Just like when you went to the penitentiary, you faced rules that said you will never get out of the penitentiary because you've got a violent crime and a life sentence. But you were successful in overcoming that. And I think that your life is a testament to numerous times you've overcome that. And
That's
you've
true.
only been here for 6 weeks right now, but you can still achieve a lot more than what you anticipate if you pursue that same path that got you through 30 years in federal prison.
No, I plan on it. I'm going to, I've got plans now, and we're going to keep struggling. But I want to tell you about one of the programs that I was at the hospital. One of the things that truly changed my life, and not only promoted me along the path towards becoming a better human being, but made me feel like I had taken a step in real development as a human being. Michael, when I was on the cancer ward, and I literally held the hand of men who died in prison and spoke to me their last words and their last breaths and their last wishes. Just the perspective that gave me when I came off that hospital floor and I came back down among the general population inmates and listened to the conversations that they had and the things that were important to them. The stark contrast between those two was just such an eye-opener to me that I don't know if I could even communicate the real gravitas of that experience. It was just incredible.
Help us understand what's important to an individual who recognizes that he's dying in federal prison.
Well, you have to understand that most of these men, they're in a great deal of pain. They're fighting cancer. They're alone. Their families can't come to see them. They're still bound by the rules of the federal prison system. And here they are. They know that they're in their last hours, their last days. And I've written letters for them, written letters home to their families, written letters to daughters and sons that have been, abandoned in years past. And just the remorse and the regret that these men feel for pursuing this type of lifestyle was one of the greatest motivations to really make me say to myself, I don't want this to be me. When my time comes, that's one of the questions now that I use to guide my life every day. When I'm on my deathbed, Michael, or you, or anybody, that guy that you're out there right now, and you're in USP Atwater, or you're in Coleman, or you're in Florence, or you're in Lompoc and you're sitting in your cell and you're listening to this, I want you to sit right now and ask yourself this question. When your day comes and you're about to die, truly about to die, with no recourse left to the future, is the life that you're leading now going to be enough? Are you going to be proud to take that, to encapsulate that life in your hands and hand it off to eternity? Because that's what it's going to be. Now, if you're happy with that, if you're happy with living in a cage and showing no respect for human life or no love for your family, if you're happy with that, that's fine. But I wasn't happy with it. That was not going to be me. And that's one of the things that really, really motivated me to change my life. And it really showed me how important it is to have that, positive outlook and that compassion every day. You never know when you walk down the street and you say something nice to one person, how that can trickle down. One positive act can trickle forward and just make your life different. So for me, as I said, when I looked at other people and watched them in the final stages of their life, they probably, they passed on and they never knew how much they meant to me.
One of the secrets of masterminds, individuals who teach us how to overcome struggle, is they show us that if we can start looking beyond ourselves, look outside of the pain that we personally are going through, and instead start looking at the broader society, the broader community, and our relationship to that broader community, we can empower ourselves and really feel as though we are living a life of meaning and relevance and contribution, even though others may see us as living in the midst of struggle. Jimmy, you were serving a life sentence. You went to prison when you were 20 years old. You didn't know when or if you would ever get out of prison. And if we look at you right now on this screen, you still look like you might be 20 or 25 years old. Prison has really preserved you, and I know you've heard that a lot since you've come back to society. But what I'd like you to reveal to our audience is how helping others and thinking about living a life of contribution and figuring out how you can add value to people when they're at their weakest, how that influenced your own adjustment as you moved through the final decades of your term in federal prison.
Well, you back, Mike?
I am back. We had a bit of a snap of a snake here. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, most of it. I didn't get it all, but
I just wanted you to tell our audience a little bit about how you personally were able to empower yourself by giving to others as you went through these decades in prison.
Well, as I gave back to people around me, I came to realize that, all the excuses that I had given myself in the beginning for all these behaviors that I was doing, thinking about my pain and, how the world owes me and, I'm special, but really I wasn't special. And, everyone around you has a life and a story to tell. And when you reach out to people and you share yourself, you realize that all of us have been through that pain, that people all around you have struggled and suffered. And, a lot of times when we're in prison, we use our past as an excuse to justify our future actions. But but when you come to see other people as equals and to see other people as deserving of your help, it allows you to find the motivation every day to go and reach out and do these good things. And the strange thing is, Michael, is that all the behaviors that we think of as good, like honesty and responsibility and integrity, become so much easier when they happen in between two people. When you think about when people say, "Oh, I'm an honest man," or "I have responsibility," you think of it in the general terms. But if you think about talking to your daughter on the phone, being honest is a beautiful thing. If you think about, the older people in your neighborhood or the old guys that live on your block, then compassion and sharing It's just something you do with them. It's not a quality that you have to embody. It's just an action that you take between two people, and it just becomes so much easier.
Jimmy, now you concluded your obligation to the Bureau of Prisons, or rather you were released from the Bureau of Prisons after 30 calendar years. Walk our audience a little bit about how your thought process evolved as you moved closer toward your release date. When did your thoughts start to begin thinking about, wow, I'm going to get out of here, it's coming soon? Tell us about that evolution of thought.
Well, for me, it was very strange because, I had to go and see the parole board. I was released by the parole board, and I wasn't sure if I was getting out. I wasn't sure if I was going to get paroled until July of 2015. And that's when they told me that I would be paroled in December.
So tell us a little bit before, like what was going on in 2014, 2013, 2000, in the beginning. Walk us through that.
Well, I was really just, trying to focus on staying positive. I started to plant, seeds. I started to save money. I started to think about what I would do if I was released, what type of employment I would have. I really started to try to focus on my family relationships and foster my family relationships. And, these sort of things, when you really, when going home becomes a real possibility, your focus starts to shift a little bit, and you have to think about what it is that you're going to do when you actually go home. What is going to make me successful as I transition out into the free world? And
were there times when you thought you might never get out of prison?
Definitely. There were definitely times when I thought I might never get out of prison. There was once where the U.S. parole sent me a notification that I had asked to be released under the Second Chance Act. I asked to get a year parole, and they sent me back a letter that said not only no, but you might not get parole at all. And I was crushed, Michael. It was rough. They told me I might never go home. And, that was a very emotional time right there. My family was distraught, and it was tough.
And so the first time you went to the parole commission and had a board hearing was when?
In 1996.
Okay. And what happened at that hearing?
In 1996, they set me off for 15 years.
And so the next time you went was when?
Well, I saw them every 2 years, but my actual next parole hearing wasn't until 2011.
Okay. And what were you expecting in 2011?
Well, I thought that they might give me some, good news or set me a date and let me, work towards that date. But even in 2011, they told me no.
Okay.
They set me off again until 2015.
And in 2015, you're getting closer to 2015. What's going through your mind at that point? Are you hopeful? Are you cynical? Walk us through what's going on.
Oh, I was hopeful. I was, there were times when I was, depressed. There were times when I was angry. There were times when I was frustrated, anxious, hopeful, all these things that I think, we go through every day in prison. There are times in prison, and I'm sure you did 23, 24 years yourself. 26. And so, I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that every day I was, positive, Pete, and I was going and going every day. There were times of depression and times of kind of, lackluster performance. But that's why you have to build these foundations that can move you along and carry you through those times, because none of us can go, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We just, there are times when it weighs on you and those things get you down.
Mm-hmm. And so you said that you had a hearing in July of 15. Walk us through what happened and how you ended up getting released from federal prison.
Well, I saw they set the hearing date on July 13th, I believe it was. And my younger brother came and my Aunt Katie came to represent me at the hearing. And when I got into the hearing, I found out that the person who was conducting the hearing wasn't going to be just a regular parole examiner. the person that conducted the hearing was an actual parole board member who came directly from Washington, D.C. to see me on this date and to have this hearing. So he came specifically to see me, and he spoke with, it was kind of unusual and a little bit scary because he spoke with my family separately. He spoke with them first, and then he called me in and, you know, asked me some questions and spoke with me about the programs and the positive things that I had done in prison, and said that he had made his decision on behalf of the parole board, and he gave me my parole date.
That day. So that day you knew you were going home.
That day I knew I was going home. I would be home for Christmas.
And how long did it take from that day, and why couldn't he have just released you that day?
Well, they set the parole date that day. The parole date that they set was December 16th. That was 30 years, 30 calendars, day for day on December 16th. And then it was up to the Bureau of Prisons to try to give me halfway house in conjunction with that date.
Were they successful in doing that?
No, they were not. And just to show you how the system works. After all that I had done, after 30 years of prison, after 10 years as a hospice companion, after being written up in the newspaper and earning certificates and awards and all these things, they still were throwing up roadblocks till the very end. The warden of that facility denied me 90 days halfway house based on the severity of the crime that I had committed 30 years ago, and told me the most time that he would give me in a halfway house is 30 days.
Well, Jimmy, you know, despite those challenges and obstacles, you remain a source of inspiration for individuals who are in trouble, because the reality is we can't influence the past. We may not have so much of an influence on the external conditions that hold us, but what we can always control is our attitude. And you have a remarkable attitude of optimism and hope and contribution. And that's why I'm so grateful to you for spending this time with our audience. I'm hoping that our audience will find some inspiration. I'm hoping your inspiring message. And I hope that you will join us again, because what we would like to do next, and I know you're busy today, you spent 3 episodes with us already, but I'd like to schedule another time to do a follow-up show if you're willing to tell those of us or those in our audience who have served lengthy periods of time in prison, what your initial transition into society has been like. And I'd like to do a follow-up with you maybe every month to talk about what are the challenges that you've done, how did your adjustment in prison contribute to this success with regard to all of the things that you're having to navigate right now. And because I really believe that you've got a message that has value to anybody who is in prison, to formerly incarcerated people, and even to people who are just going into the system. So if you would be so gracious as to schedule another opportunity for me, I just think that you've got a lot to offer. Is that something that you might be willing to do?
I would love to come back and talk with you, Michael, anytime.
So Jimmy, this comes to the end of our 3rd episode. Are there any final words that you'd like to share with the audience of Earning Freedom and Success After Prison?
Yes, I would just like to say that, you know, I know what that cell feels like, and I've been in that cell, and Michael, you've been in that cell, and I just want you to always remember that no matter where you are now, you have the power to choose where you want to be in the future. That is something that you can do. Others have done it, and you can do it too. And just remember one thing: you will never end up in a good place if you follow the path of bad decisions. That was a rule that I lived by. You
know, Jimmy, and you really spoke about it again today. You spoke about the difficulties and the challenges of dealing with the United States Parole Commission. A lot of our people in our audience won't have the opportunity to go to the Parole Commission today, but we don't know what will happen in the future. What we absolutely do know is that system would not have let you out had you not adjusted well during your imprisonment. Your adjustment in prison had a direct influence on your being able to be in society today and talk with our audience today. And that's one final thought I'd like to leave with our audience, is that the decisions you're making right now are going to have a direct influence on your opportunities for a better outcome later.
Yeah, no question.
Thank you very much. I am Michael with michaelsantos.com. We are very grateful to Jimmy Hamilton, an individual who overcame a life sentence to come back as a successful citizen. I'm proud to feature him on the Earning Freedom podcast on success after prison. I will have show notes available at michaelsantos.com. We encourage you to subscribe to the program. If you're listening to it for free on iTunes, please subscribe to the show, rate and review the show so we can get more distribution and be the change that we all want to see in the world. Thanks very much. Awesome, bro.